So this is just, I'm going to chop it up with my fellow engineer here, Mr. Nathaniel. How you doing, sir? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm
Nathaniel.
good, brother. I'm good. Just you can call me. You know me by Nate, man. Don't
Yeah,
chop
no
it.
doubt, no doubt.
That's my government name you gave me.
Yeah, all right. Well, this is just a 30-minute session. It's kind of an interlude type of thing as we transition to our keynote. So Nate and I just going to kind of chop it up, talk about our respective experiences. There was a question earlier in regards to some of the skill sets for architects and engineers. Certainly, I was not a math whiz. In my time coming up, I was definitely more of the creative. I suspect, Nate, you might say a little different, huh?
Yeah, well, math and sciences where I always kind of came natural to me for the most part. I'm not a creative at all. I totally take what
There you go. Hence the difference.
yeah, I take what's out there and I try and make it better, or in some cases try and improve it and take waste out of it in some way. But yeah, absolutely. When it comes to becoming an engineer, I mean, math, sciences, mostly the math sides, it's
Right.
very, very important. So spending time there is going to be very, very key. So I mean, like, we can probably get right into kind of our
Yeah,
journeys,
man.
man.
We've been
Think.
hearing a lot about architects these last couple sessions, and certainly last week. And then the last session really got into some of what it takes to be an architect,
Right.
education-wise, and all of that. Talk a little bit about your story
All right.
and engineering a little bit, man.
All right. Well, we so I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer. All right. So, I went to it's in the background with the Florida State University.
Ah, not
Uh,
HBCU. Okay, okay, I got
uh, it's not in the highest of all the seven hills in Tallahassee, which FAMU is.
you.
But Florida State and FSU, they share the engineering school in Tallahassee, and I pursued mechanical engineering. How I got into it, my father is an immigrant from Jamaica, and I'm the first generation American. And he became a mechanical engineer. He went to University of West Indies and went to Cast in Jamaica, and came to the United States looking for a better life, right? And I came along, right? But he started the firm in South Florida back in 1988 to deliver mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering for the built environment, for buildings, right? And so I just followed in his footsteps. I said, hey, I love to do mechanical engineering. But I used to always play with Legos as well, just like every lot of other people did. And so I went to school for mechanical engineering. I came out the path to become an engineer is really just deciding you want to be that, right? Really, what did you do growing up as a youth? I gravitated towards Legos and stuff like that, so I kind of just said maybe I should do that, and also seeing my dad as well. But I got my degree in mechanical engineering. Once you get your degree, the next step is to decide what path you want to go. One thing I did in college that they never really told me a lot about. A lot of recruiters and stuff like that are, going recruiting for talent. We're looking more for design engine, people who design products like calculators or cups or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
The type of engineering that we do, which is designing with architects, or designing the HVAC systems, designing the electrical systems, the plumbing, that stuff that was not very much pushed, or even advertised very much. There weren't a lot of recruiters for that, right? So everybody wanted to work for Caterpillars of the world or for the Honeywells or others, and they don't really do that type of work. So therefore, the whole professional engineering license wasn't really pushed. I mean, we learned, I knew about it because my dad was a PE, right? But I did not know that a professional engineer or someone who can pretty much sign off on drawings and construction documents existed in school. So that's something that's a bit of a gap, at least during my time, when it came to becoming a PE. So with that said, the path to becoming a professional engineer, the type that works on buildings like we do, like architects do, is to pursuing your engineering degree, going after what we call your FE exam, Fundamentals of Engineering exam. There's 2 exams you have to take. The first one is your FE.
You guys get it easy, man. Just 2 exams.
It is. I know y'all got 5. Y'all used to have 7. Now you got 5. It's crazy, but you're
Yeah, man.
trying to get to our level. I see, but
Back to 6.
but But it's encouraged you take that fundamentals of engineering exam right after school, because a lot of this stuff is exactly what you learned throughout the last 4 years, 5 years of your schooling. I did not get it the first time around. So, and I did not. And Mr.
We'll
Clark,
talk about some of the horror stories later.
yeah, but we'll get back to that. But that's the path. And then once you are in the field for about 4 years, you would qualify to take your professional engineering exam. And then you become a PE. Now, if you have a master's degree, they take a year off of that. Okay, so you only need 3 years of professional experience to give you credit for you to do your master's. And you can pursue that in that same process. It qualifies you whether you're mechanical, electrical, chemical, if you go that route, or any other engineer for that matter. So that's kind of a bit of the path. It's kind of my path a little bit, and it could kind of go from there.
It's funny because I didn't pick up on the accent until you were talking just now. As much as we've and I might slip into my accent because I'm also from Jamaica. It's funny, we always get because until we talk to another Jamaican, that's when the accent may come out,
Yeah.
It's also funny because I too that was not really aware of architecture because my dad was, my mom was a nurse, a registered nurse. My dad was an accountant, so a certified accountant. So I was born in Jamaica as well and came over when I was very young to New York City. And so, really he saw me. I started basically just drawing and doing little makeshift cardboard models. I was kind of gravitating towards that. I was doing comic books, making up my own characters. And I even have to this day, it's dusty as hell, but I have a cardboard model of Frederick Douglass's house that I literally just looked into the magazine and this looks like a wall here. This looks like a door there. And I made it up from looking at the house in the magazine without having any drawings or anything. And my dad still has that model. So it's crazy how just naturally you feel drawn to a particular skill set. But my dad said, you know what? That's nice. It looked good, but you're not going to be an artist. All right. So get brought to engineering school.
Yeah, you can't make any money with being an artist. Exactly.
Right. Well, I actually ended up, I took technical draft and actually went to a vocational high school in Far Rockaway, New York. So I took technical drafting, but it was more of, the engineering style drafting than anything else back then. So I actually applied, was at the top of my class. Catherine talked about doing well in school. Unfortunately, I did well too, including math. So I actually applied. My dad sent me to engineering school. So I applied to like 6 different engineering schools, man. I got, Purdue, Rochester Institute, Rensselaer Poly, top schools. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, but so I ended up at the University of Virginia, one of the top engineering schools in the country. Got in no problem within a semester, and a 1.6 GPA, what happened to be the average at the time for freshman engineers. I was a civil. I said, man, I'm done with this. I'm out.
Yeah.
Actually, so the moral of the story is I was not exposed to an architect. So I didn't have a dad like yourself, which was super awesome. That was already an engineer and you got a chance to exposure. Catherine had the experience that she talked about, being exposed in high school to the profession and having a chance to work and get a sense of that. I didn't have none of that until I got to college and I actually met what later became our national president for the National Organization of Minority Architects at UVA, Mr. Kevin Holland. And I went over to the architecture school and I was like, oh, this looks a little closer to what I want to do, and it's not, my dad won't get pissed because it's not an artist. So I'm like, you know what? I think this is where I want to be. So that's how I backed into architecture school, as I ran from engineering and found myself in architecture school. So did that course, didn't know how I was going to pay for it, ran out of money. So I ended up going to Howard University. My brother lived in DC and we were just down in Charlottesville. So he said, come hang out with me. And it was the best move I could have made. I know you had the Florida State experience, and in turn, I had the same experience at UVA, being a small fish in a big pond, not a ton of support. Folks kind of trying to shove you through the door. If you don't make the cut, you juxtapose that to an HBCU like Howard, one of the predominant HBCUs, and we had, just like Catherine talked about earlier, man, it was just a completely different mindset, man. Now you're in an environment of empowerment. You're around other African Americans that are just as smart and many cases smarter than you. So you're trying to, that you got that competition. Architecture school is very much based on competition, as Damon mentioned. So it just makes you more attuned to who you are. It empowers you as a leader, as many of us have become in the profession over the years. Renault, partner, FAIA. It's just that type of nurturing environment. But what I liked about UVA was, just access to resources, man, and alumni and things like that. So I think both experiences are great. Went on, actually took a different path. I think you took your exams and, you went into your internship. I actually joined the Air Force. So again, there's a theme here. I didn't know how I was going to pay for school, so I joined ROTC.
Yeah, there's no, it is. And what I learned, man, there's no right path. There is your path.
Yeah,
And that's that, you may, especially when you're younger, you get caught up in looking, comparing,
yeah,
how,
yeah,
are you going in the right path as your peers are, or someone who you think has kind of made it? No, I know people who didn't finish school in 6 years, right? Or whatever, but they are
exactly.
like, they have their own business, or they're very thriving what they do. Just one thing I want to make sure they take away: there's no right path. There is your path, and your path should be littered with perseverance. As long as you
Absolutely.
get to where you need to get to, what your
Absolutely.
goals are, but you got to have a goal. You can't reach for the stars if you don't have any stars to reach for.
Exactly.
You
So,
got to reach for the stars. So you got to have a path.
that's a good segue to our next section, perseverance. Just like you said, you took your exam and you failed your first one and had to get around to the second one. I did the same thing. I came out of school, like I said, it took me almost 14 years to get licensed. Talking about
Yeah.
perseverance, so our typical process now, as you mentioned, you have to go to a accredited school of architecture, NAB accredited. And Kelly, if you could start to put some of the links in the chat, so folks can see some of these resources that Nate and I are talking about. You got to go to an accredited school. That's usually we still have a 3+2 or a 5 where you do or a 4+2 where you do a 4-year bachelor degree plus a 2-year master's program, or you can do a 5-year professional program, is what Howard has, and a host of other schools have as well. Then you can sign up for our experience. Now it's called, it used to be an internship development program, but now it's called the Architecture Experience Program, the AXP, which sets the criteria for your internship years. And that can take however long it needs to take. And then when you're ready, you could take, like you said, our 6-part. When I took it, it was 7. Registration exam, all electronic, all virtual. Now it's always you would go into a testing center and take it, but now it's even virtual. So and that usually, they still give you like 3 to 5 years to get that done. And then you're licensed and you can continue. So tell me a story, Nate, about your licensure experience when you were taking the test. Anything out of the
Yeah, I
ordinary?
mean, listen, it's a lot. I'll put it this way. Becoming a professional engineer, it's about getting past the test. All right. You study for the test. I mean, a lot of what you may have learned and you may learn
It's a
in
good
the
point.
actual
Yeah.
in the actual work environment. I mean, it's applicable, right? Don't get me wrong, it helps, but the test is the test, and you got to get past the test. And there's plenty of resources and study books that you spend thousands of dollars on them,
Yeah.
but they're
You get
they're
the
out
hiccup.
there.
You get the
You know,
hiccup.
and a lot of times your companies will help support you on that. But I mean, but it's well worth it. You put the time in, you get past the test. The test is over, and now you become a PE, or a registered architect in this case. And once you get past that, the work is the work, and now you get to really be able to um, stamp your work and say that I am going to build this and design this to protect the health and the public safety of the environment, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. I mean, we are building a community to ensure that it's safe and healthy and that follows all the code rules to make sure that people are able to thrive and live.
Yeah.
And so it's that's what it is. So I want to make sure that people understand it is just a test, and you just got to get past it.
Yes.
And
No,
I think
I completely agree. Because that's where some of our students really, our interns really trip up because they're trying to think through a design problem or think, get frustrated because they haven't been exposed to this, that, and the third. It is an exercise in testing. It's a rites of passage, almost like a badge of honor. If you're able to make it through this ridiculous quote unquote process. I'm not saying that the NAB and NCARB and those organizations that administer the test are not giving you quality information. I think it exposes you to the full breadth of what the profession is about. I took 7 exams. I took 4 multiple choice exams that talked about everything from construction documents all the way up to mechanical systems, structural systems, and then we had 3 graphic exams that it was this really weird kind of non-AutoCAD like program where you had to draw building plans and the wall section and site plan and things like that. But you have to, it's just an exercise that teaches you discipline. It teaches you perseverance. It teaches you some of the most basic skills for architecture. For me, I failed my first exam. Now there's 7 to go. And my first one, I dropped the ball. So it was just like, whoa, do I want to go back and take this exam or do I want to just barrel through, which some students do? They just go, you know what? We have a colleague that passed the exams within 18 months. I think it was 18 months and 2 years. And Damon, I'm talking about our current NOMAD Latin president. And basically what he did, and I know another colleague that did the same thing, he went through and took all of the exams. And if he dropped one, he dropped one because you could retake it in 6 months. In his case, he passed like 5 out of 7 or something, like some ridiculous number. But come back 6 months later and you take the ones you missed. Bottom line is, back to your point, Nate, there are strategies out there where you just got to get past the exam. And so tell me, what's is there? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you one of my horror stories.
yeah,
Maybe you have a horror story
absolutely.
on the exam. So I got down. I told you I failed the first one, and then I actually failed the first structural exam, which scared the crap out of me. But that's a whole nother story. So got through, all of my graphics. I was down to my last 2 exams: mechanical, which is one of the hardest exams. People were dropping like flies. They weren't passing that stupid test. And pre-design, which was actually pretty straightforward. So I wasn't too worried about that. But check this out. I got to the end of the year and there's something called a rolling clock. And they were actually updating the exam. So if I didn't take and pass it in enough time, I would actually have to roll into another exam, type of exam, and have to take more tests. It was crazy. So it got to the end of the year, Christmas time. I had scheduled this stupid thing 2 days after Christmas. No, it was the Monday following Christmas, like right in between Christmas and New Year's. It got to a point is if I did not pass this exam, that means I could take it again in June and still have another shot. That's why I did it this way. But I had to take it. So I sequestered myself. I left day after Christmas, went down to, I was taking it in Warner Robins. I actually had to schedule in Warner Robins because they weren't orphaned in Atlanta in my time frame. Man, I was in a hotel room for 2 days cramming for this exam. Basically, what you should not do, ladies and gentlemen, for an exam, do not cram. But I did, and I took it, man, scared as crap, and I made it. I made
That's
it.
what's up.
And,
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, our experience is very similar in that respect. I mean, it's when I came out of school and again, trying to follow my dad's footstep a little bit, so let me go to the EIT immediately out of school. And, I guess, to be honest with you, I didn't take it as probably as serious as I probably should have. I thought I'd be able to get by with it because, I did okay in school and I thought I'd be able to apply all the thermodynamics and dynamic systems and everything else that I learned not even 2 years earlier or a year earlier. I missed it by a couple points straight up. And I wasn't as grinding as I should have been. So I ended up waiting a little while and I ended up taking it again. I got past it. What my stories I have to tell you on that is, I crammed. I did, the second time around. I mean, I did try and space out some of my studying, right? But when you get to D-Day or get closer to that day, you feel like, oh, I'm gotta be missing something. I'm missing something. You're working out problems. Why am I not getting this problem right? Where did this problem come from? This is a whole new problem. They didn't show this in the practice. So, it's like,
exactly. Stuff you don't see in practice. You're like, what in the world?
What is this? What are you talking about? Duct system? What? What? So it's, but once you put enough time in, you expose yourself to enough problems, you work the problems. Same with the PE exam. Work problems, you'll get into different scenarios, different situations, practice exams, practice problems. You'll find out because our exams is only one day. So PE exam is an 8-hour exam. All right. Your whole day's gone. You get an hour break, right? 4 hour, you get a 4-hour first half, 4-hour second half, right? It's actually 9 hours, an hour break. So 8 hours full exam, so you just have to work the problems, man. And you'll cover enough. And guess what? That works out to about 6 minutes a problem.
Boom, you got to get your timing right. You got to get your
it works out about 6 minutes a problem. And trust me, what I learned is that the practice problems that you go through, the studying you go through, are actually a lot more exhaustive than the actual exam. Believe it or not. You hope that's the case. You'll get a couple zingers in there while you're doing the exam, but you're like, but for the most part, I mean, if you do the problems, work as many problems as you can, work every problem, and just even if you get it wrong, have the notes next to you when you're practicing, have your book open next to you. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. Just because you're not getting it right by yourself while you're studying doesn't mean that you're not retaining that which you're assisting yourself with when you go back and do it again. Right. So don't get discouraged if you're actually doing your practice problems and you're not getting them right and you're having to look at the answer in the back of the book and kind of figure out what their path was. Don't get discouraged. That is all like what we talked about earlier, exposure. It's all exposure to your brain. Your brain's retaining all of that. So next time around, you know exactly where to go. All we get is a computer-based exam. All we get is we get a bit of a guide for common equations being used throughout the entire thing. And that's all we get. It used to be open book exam for mechanical. They have moved it to computer-based. Really? I think it used to be, before in the back in the day, like 4 years ago, they used to bring shopping carts of books and ashtray tables. And
that's what they did back in the day for us too.
Yeah, back in the day, but now it's all computer-based. So
it's all computer-based. So before we wrap and we can talk about this, we're gonna have a part 2 because we can really get into some strategies, just you and I. because the timing thing is so important in architecture exams too,
Sure.
because they cram, especially the multiple choice. You got upwards of 100 questions in about what, 2 hours, maybe 3, and you have to get it down to 2 minutes per question and move on and give you time.
We got 80 questions for 8 hours, so we got 6 minutes for us.
So as we wrap, we only, unfortunately, they only gave us a 30-minute window. I don't know what's up, but as we wrap, let's close out with why we do what we do. Why did we go through all of that trouble and all that pain? You first.
Yeah, sure.
What is it about your profession that you feel it was worth it?
Well, at the end of the day, again, your path is your path, and my path is, my dad started the company, and I wanted to put myself in position to take that company over one day. Legacy. I'm a legacy business owner. All right. So my dad. And listen, this is what we all dream about: leaving a legacy for your kids. And here we are. I'm a living legacy of that. Right. And I follow that path to do that. But what inspires me today, what wakes me up every single day, obviously, is my family, obviously. But honestly, driving down the road and looking off to the right or the left and saying, I helped design that building. The people who occupy that building are in there because I helped them. I helped design the building in a way that they can occupy it and have it work for them, whatever that may be. You know what I mean? That's a big deal.
Yeah,
That's where I'll close it out on my front.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, that's a great segue to our keynote, because Oscar's really going to get into what inspired him. And of course, he's been much more successful than both of us. So
yeah, he's the trailblazer for us.
For me, it's kind of more of the same, right? So it's we've heard about it through why Catherine went to be part of the Rose Fellowship. We heard about it last week from Renal, in terms of what influenced him when he was growing up in the projects, in the housing development environment, and wanted to really reshape that and have a direct impact. So I get my practice. I'm the president of Syntony Design Collaborative, and we focus on working with communities, working in the urban environment on projects that's going to transform lives. I do a lot of preservation work. I do a lot of adaptive reuse, community engagement, and just trying to show how architecture can create, much like what Renal is doing with his work, just change lives on a community level. And that's what wakes me up every day, man. I've done some great projects. I speak. I love working with youth, and it's because I'm licensed that I now have this platform to say, hey, you can do it. Nate, you did it. Now you can tell someone else they can do it, and they can see that, that you look just like them.
And all the students out there, you don't say you've never been exposed to people who are doing it. We are your exposure. And I'm a firm believer in it. So please take advantage of this exposure you're getting here today. All right, take it back, process it, see if it works for you, but please do something with it. Not everybody gets this.